moving the needle on founder failure, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Justin Gordon, and welcome to Startup 2.0 by Spark XYZ. Join us each week as we give you access to some of the top investors and entrepreneurs in the country to help you think through and overcome the top challenges that startups face. Today's guest is Yalung, who is the managing director of Bixel Exchange, which is the Center of Innovation and Technology in the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. Kat, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
To get things started, for those who don't know, what is Bixel Exchange?
Bixel Exchange is a nonprofit, first and foremost. We're in the public, private, and tech space. We are a technology incubator that provides free mentorship and advising for early stage entrepreneurs.
Awesome. And I know you have a couple different programs. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Sure. So everything we do at Bixel is community focused. So it's all on the baseline of talent is equally distributed, opportunity is not.
Yeah.
And so my program is focused on the technology incubator, inclusive ecosystem. And then on the other side, we help connect underserved community college students and high school students into jobs in tech.
Awesome. And then with that too, I mean, how are people finding you? How are people finding out about your programs? How do they get to you in the first place?
Sure. So we are housed at the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. So people find us through partnerships. We work with community partners all over LA. So specifically on the incubator front, 80% of the people coming through our doors, we serve about 300 startups a year.
Okay.
So 80% of the people coming through are referred through startups, partners of ours that love us, other advisors. We have a team of 40 advisors. So people that just adore and really find value in the people and the community and the resources.
Yeah. And with those resources, you mentioned like the advisors as well. I mean, how do you build that out? How do you kind of source those partnerships, and what does that look like in terms of their involvement with your program as well?
Sure. I'm a true believer in the community. In order for people to find and access resources, you have to go to them. Yeah. Los Angeles is super spread out.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
As we all know, it's not easy to get from one neighborhood to the other.
Yeah.
So one, it's just being involved in any entrepreneurial spaces, whether that's other nonprofits that are supporting entrepreneurship education and or going where there's events, whether it's South Central, whether it's the South Bay, whether it's closer to downtown. You know, a lot of the technology ecosystem is quote unquote on the west side and very housed there, but there's little communities that are popping up everywhere. So it's meeting people when you're out and about who are already advising, that are working with startups, and getting to know them and inviting them into the fold.
Yeah. And are those like, I'm just curious on that. Is it like they're committed to like a year or just like a certain amount of time, or they're just like, they help out whenever you need them? How does that work
for our advisors?
For your advisors.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, our advisors, so my budget, because we're a nonprofit, my budget actually goes to paying my advisors.
Okay.
So we match, all the startups that go through our program are matched to one advisor.
Okay.
And they're their core advisor. And so that core advisor is an accountability partner, a thought partner, helps to shepherd them through their blocks and challenges, and then works with them to achieve, we all operate on an OKR basis. So that's our tool that we use, objective key results, to hold our startups accountable. And that's what we use to help them find their North Star, and then help identify, what is the milestone in the needle that'll help them get quicker to their North Star.
Yeah. And then with these startups in the first place, I mean, what is the process for them to even get into your programs?
Sure.
Yeah.
We are, referral, but there's an online application. We really, because we're a free model, so no cost, non-equity, we look for coachability or mentorship programs. So I tell everyone, we cannot help you if you're not coachable and open to feedback. And so we test for coachability, we test for commitment in terms of, I tell everyone our assessment process is really just to get a feel for who you are as a person, why you're doing what you're doing, what problem you're solving. So it's getting to know where you're at in the startup stage, your team, and then where you're moving forward. So we get to know the person on a very personal level, because matching them to a mentor and their success is also based on, how well they vibe and how well they're working together, as you know.
Yeah. And you said you take a few hundred people every year?
This year alone, we've worked with 320 startups. So we see, I'm pretty sure we see the highest volume in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so we recently expanded our core advising team from 15 to 40 in the last few months. And so it just means a stronger, diverse network of people who represent LA and can be examples for other future generation of entrepreneurs. So when I think about recruiting my advisors, I think of people who are passionate about the community, who have really diverse backgrounds, experiences, every sense of the word diversity. And I want them to be examples of not just the entrepreneurs we're serving, but other future potential entrepreneurs that might encounter us on this program, on other programs, and things like that. So we definitely have, I didn't mention this, but we definitely work with a lot of, half of our entrepreneurs are minority, underrepresented. So underrepresented for us means Black, brown founders, LGBTQ, veterans, the full spectrum.
Yeah. And then with that too, just kind of think about your program. Are there other programs like that, across the nation, or is it just like an LA thing where you have this program with Bixel Exchange? Like, how does that work?
Sure. Bixel Exchange is definitely Los Angeles based. Yeah. Our model is unique in that it's in the public, private, and tech space because we're hosted at a chamber. We work with a lot of big corporate companies, but we also work with community partners. And then we're also in tech, so it's translating that. But some of the other community partners that I'm a big fan of that are resources for people in the underrepresented minority space, Backstage Capital, Defy Ventures is formerly incarcerated. Nifty, Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, is high school focused. There's quite a few.
Yeah.
But they're all in the underrepresented minority space.
Yeah.
And it does take a village to raise early stage startups. Yeah. So we have to work together in order to tackle, what challenges they're facing.
Yeah, and just thinking of that, especially because there are other programs potentially outside of Los Angeles, if you know of any, because Bixel Exchange is a LA focused one, but if someone's watching, listening that is not in LA, I'm trying to think of what resources they may have, so you can look into those ones, I guess. Do you know of programs that are doing like pretty much the same besides them that are in other major cities, or you're not really familiar? Like
that's
Bixel
a great
Exchange?
Question. I don't know. For everyone that asks, I say Google is your best friend when it comes, but it's also, we don't know what we don't know. So it's what you Google also matters. Yeah. Right. And so it's whether you're women founder, whether you're a Black founder or a Latinx founder, Googling, not just Googling, but identifying on LinkedIn, for those that are out there that are younger college students who like, what do I look for? How do I get into startups? How do I get in tech? I have not always been in tech and didn't know what an entrepreneur or VC was growing up. Right. And I'm a big believer you can't become what you've never seen. So finding people online that are mentors of yours, whether you know them or not, they can be on Twitter, they can be on LinkedIn, they can be on Instagram, and identifying, whether it's in tech or whether they're an entrepreneur, don't hesitate to reach out. I always tell people, don't hesitate to just ping. You'd be shocked at how many CEOs and founders, even from big companies, will respond from a quick message like, I really love what you're doing at your company. Would you have time for a 15-minute call or interview? I know Lucas does this a lot too, which I think is very gracious of his time.
Well, and if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
No, you're never going to get what you don't ask for. So
you kind of have to, which for some people though, they're just not taught that, or they don't know of that. But like, that's why I think it's helpful to hear from different entrepreneurs or VCs who say that you have to just ask to start with, so you have a chance to even play the game. And with the different mentors and resources like Bixel Exchange has, I mean, knowing that you have these though, what are the problems that these startups are facing or these founders are facing, and how do you help them through those?
Sure. Common problems and common threads. So majority of people, I would say 90% of the people come to us and say, we want money. We need money.
Funding, yes.
And one of the hardest parts about my job is identifying, okay, you say you need money, you say you want this, but what is actually the block and challenge from you getting to the next step, whether that's building your product. And so what I find is a huge common thread and problem for early stage founders is a lot of assumptions, right? And potentially just being very attached to a solution. So obviously you have to be the biggest champion for what you're building and what problem it is, but really identifying even some of what is the problem that you're solving and for who? Like, what is that specific pain point? Because then you can laser focus on that problem and your product, or service solving that problem. But then it's testing, right? A lot of founders just dive into, I'm going to build this app, I'm going to build this service, whatever it may be. And they forget there's all these hypotheses and tests and assumptions that you're making, and you need to break it down before you spend 40K or whatever it is, 10K, 5K, whatever, anything on diving into a path that may not be what the market needs, right? And So it's not being attached to the solution of it and diving in. So really, I think customer discovery is a big piece of it. And when I always ask people, so how many potential customers have you spoke to?
Yeah.
And some are taken aback and
talking to potential customers? We don't do that.
Maybe 5. And then if you're talking to them, is it friends and family, or is it actually strangers and people that can give you a real feedback on whether or not your product or solution, what you're building, is meeting an actual problem or pain point?
Yeah, and you mentioned those assumptions too. It's like, what are those assumptions around who the people might be? And are you talking to those people? Because your friends and family may not be the market, even though you're like, oh, they're right here, I'll just talk to them. But getting out and talking to those actual people that might be your target market, but you think at least, is obviously important. What else do you see from these startup founders related to more so like the team issues? Is there anything that you can help them with, or like struggles they have and how you kind of help them through those?
Sure. I think with team issues, I think it's really being honest with your co-founder and or yourself on your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right. And knowing where we work with a lot of solo founders in our program, and we work with a handful of first-time founders, absolutely. And so when you're building a product and you're building your service and identifying, a lot of the conflict comes from, I'm doing more work than you, or how much equity do you need, or, being extra clear, this is my strength, this is my weakness, what are expectations of each other, and how are we pushing this forward? Like, this is your lane, you're going to focus on this, whether you're CEO, COO, whatever roles. I mean, in a startup, you're doing everything together. Yeah. Right? So you need to be in the trenches and be able to work through conflict, right? And so just sharing whatever feedback immediately versus waiting for a day or two because you're too scared of offending your friend, or, it's always treading lightly. Like, knowing when you pick who you're going to work with, especially on a co-founder in early startup stage, you need to, like in the dating world, you're not going to marry someone after our first date. Y'all need to, work together on whether that's going through physical challenges and doing a mud run together, or getting through a project together, or just traveling together and getting to know each other on a personal basis, because all of those things directly impact whether or not you're going to be successful as co-founders in a company. Yeah. So I don't think sometimes when we have entrepreneurship conversations, we don't talk enough about personal, mental, mind health, but that's such a big part of, whether or not your company moves forward and how successful you and your team are. Yeah. And then how do you talk through that though with the solo founders? Because that's a whole different thing then. If you're solo, like, how do you talk through that with them, or what do you suggest maybe to them when they're just working by themselves? Yeah, I think it's, even though they're working by themselves, they're still working with contractors, right? Or interns. True. And so it's identifying, or stepping back and saying, do I actually need to have a co-founder right now? Am I at this time in my, one of women founders that I work with, a lot of badass women founders are like, I can do this alone. But to a certain extent, you get to a point, and in order to scale up to the next level, you absolutely need a second person, right? And that person, and it's letting go of the trust and letting go of that control. So it's absolutely, we as advisors in the startup space, we're oftentimes life coaches, in my opinion. We're life coaches, or mentors, or advisors, psychologists. It's all of the above. Everything. Everything. So you just have to wrap that all in one. And I think it's asking them the right questions, right? Yeah. And it's less about imposing what I think they should do. And it's not, it's actually where they need to go. And so asking the right questions of what's the best next step for them on their team. And then also as a solo founder, how are they spending 40 hours of their day? Yeah. And how are they dividing that time? Yeah. And is it actually being spent on what will move the needle to the next milestone? Yeah. And one thing is too, like, a lot of startups fail. Obviously that's a big part of being a startup. A lot of them fail, but how do you either walk them through that, or tell them, like, if they're struggling with their company potentially, what's that conversation like, or how are you helping them through, like, this might be time to shut it down or pivot, or like, how do you talk about that with these founders? I had that conversation this week. Yeah. She is in the comic book space. Yeah. And just so passionate about the idea and loves when people light up about it. Yeah. And is building something that it's not her domain expertise, right? And I think she's finally come to the conclusion of she just keeps hitting a wall and the product isn't building and there's not enough traction. And I think it's just sitting down and talking through, okay, what are the options? Let's just talk them out. You know, like, they're not going to happen today or tomorrow, but just a discussion. Let's just think through the options, right? you could pass it on to another team. You could keep doing this. You could, exit or potentially try and sell the quote unquote graveyard assets, right?
Yeah.
And just talking through the options and kind of letting them figure out, where do you think this needs to go?
Yeah.
Right. Without.
Yeah. And to that point then, with startups failing, I mean, what are some of those reasons you see why they fail in the first place? Like, what are some of those things you see, like they fail because X, Y, Z? What are some of those reasons why startups fail?
Mm-hmm. I think it's team a lot of the time. It's because a business is a direct reflection of what's going on personally in your life. Yeah. I mean, entrepreneurship and life is just, it's the same, right? And my definition of entrepreneurship is creative problem solving. And so you're identifying a problem, and sometimes it's not honing in on what specific problem it is, because some say they're trying to solve it all for everyone, but you absolutely can't do that. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And so the entrepreneurs that I found to be most successful are the ones who don't even call themselves an entrepreneur. They're like, this was a problem that kept me up at night. And it was so personal and near and dear to me, and I needed it. I could not build this in order to solve what was happening. So I would say team, and I think being attached to, my business, my company, my startup is the only solution to this. Those kind of that mentality and that attitude around, being attached to a specific way versus letting the market will dictate. The people in the market will dictate how your product and service needs to evolve and transform. So
and then one thing too, just going back to like the programs of Bixel Exchange, how long are these programs, or how long do they last?
Sure. So we're unique in that mentorship advising people stay with us on average of a year.
Okay.
And so we're very complementary to, we've had people from YC come to us and just say, I just need someone to help navigate me through this. Or we've had, a handful of startups go to Techstars. So very complementary to those cohort-based programs. So we're not cohort-based. Yeah. We're definitely like open applications running through, and people working with us on an average of a year. Yeah. And so I say that our entrepreneurs drive what kind of mentorship advising you do. So we know the entrepreneurial journey, as you know, is up and down, and it's a roller coaster. So things come in and out. Yeah. And so people, work with us with their core advisor maybe once a month. Maybe it's an in-person, maybe it's 15 minutes. Others, depending on what stage they're in and what pain point and problem they're solving, whether it's hey, we're getting through building our MVP, or we're getting through our fundraising. So we have 3 different stages of our program. And so startup stage, mid stage, and investor ready. And investor ready doesn't mean they haven't raised. It just means whether they're just raising again they're there. They're there. Yeah. And each stage has specific milestones that they're marching towards. So it's really clear cut as to, hey, in order for us to get you to the next stage, let's make sure you've hit all of these, and then shepherd you to the next part. And the path to success then for us that we've identified is there's more clarity of, okay, if I haven't hit these milestones, if you haven't hit all of this list of things, quote unquote, for us, you're not investor ready. Yeah. Right. And my advisors are divided into different teams. So there's a money team. So until you talk to the money team, you need to make sure you've hit all of these, these, our checklist of where you've gone in your startup.
And with that too, then what are some of those milestones? At different stages, so people have an idea of what they even might look like?
Yeah, we have a nice little one-pager that shows all the milestones. So I'm happy to share that, and we can point that in. But some of them is just quite simply, how much time are you committing to this? In 1 week, are you committing more than 50% or 70%? Have you hired someone full-time or part-time? Have you had business certification? I mean, those are more things in the small business and ownership side. Yeah. Do you have a product? Is it an MVP or is it a prototype? How many paid customers do you have? How many users do you have? How long, just different tractions. On the investor ready side, it's, if you have partners, are there letters of intent around partners? Yeah. Not just conversations, right? How many people have committed to, how many views, downloads. There's all kinds of different milestones and metrics. It just depends on what space, but those are some examples. Yeah, but you definitely have to have something to track, like where are you at? Are you progressing or not? Yes. And it's funny seeing companies that don't have that. It's just like, how do you know
if you're getting better, if you're improving your company, you have to have these metrics. I think one of the other interviews we've had as well, I think Sean Sheik mentioned that the same type of thing. Like we have to have a clear list of these metrics and this is what we're trying to hit. And then if we're hitting them, okay, great. Why? Either case, it's like why? Why are we hitting them? Why aren't we hitting them? And maybe adjust from there as well.
And I think it's also defining, as a founder and entrepreneur, you need to define what success is for you, both qualitatively and quantitatively.
Yeah.
And so that's why we use objective key results, because it allows for flexibility. When people aren't hitting, you can reevaluate and say, whoa, were these OKRs that we had too ambitious, too easy? And are we marching towards the wrong OKRs?
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right? And OKRs accounts for qualitative and quantitative. And then being able to ask your advisors, ask people close to you, ask the team that you trust, are these OKRs realistic for us? Are these right? Are we, and then ask your team, right? Yeah. So I don't believe in just asking, you have coordinators, you have people around you who are cheerleaders, and it doesn't matter their title.
Yeah.
You need to, I think, be humble enough to ask for feedback on, is this working? What's not working? What are we missing as a team? What are our blind spots?
And now we'll take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, Brex. A big heartfelt thank you to Brex, who without their support, this show would not be possible. We've seen firsthand the difficulties accessing basic corporate credit without providing a security deposit or personal guarantee early on. As companies grow, managing expenses has become more difficult and time consuming, which is why we've partnered with Brex to offer a corporate credit card that is not personally guaranteed, offers higher credit limits, provides auto reconciliation, and integrates with ERPs using receipt capture. Brex is the credit card of the startup ecosystem, and we highly encourage you to check them out. And back to the show. Kat, which areas of the startup landscape are you most excited about now, moving forward?
I absolutely love anything in the wellness and health space.
Ooh, okay.
Because our world, there is so much stress and so much, pressure just to do and perform.
Yeah.
I think just disrupting even just the broken healthcare system period is great.
Yeah.
I like fintech. One of my favorite fintech companies is Tala. I don't know if you're familiar with Tala, but she's just a badass female founder and has raised over 60 million. And she is building credit and data points in the underserved global market.
Yeah.
Where that data is not being captured anywhere around the world. So those are kind of my two areas that I think I would like to see more of when I think of, for the students that are listening and you're thinking of what you're building. Yes, identify a problem that you can't keep out of your head and out of your mind, but something that is near and dear to you, that you're crazy passionate about.
Right.
And it'll keep you up at night and dreaming, right? When people come and say, oh, I have so many ideas, and I'm like, okay, ideas are ideas, whatever.
Yeah.
Identify that one thing that, you talk to your friends about, you're dreaming about, you're reading books about, you can't stop thinking about, because that's what will drive whatever it is. But yeah, financial literacy. Yeah. Our world needs more financial literacy, period.
Yeah.
There's no education around that. And similarly in the entrepreneurship space, actually, it's almost the same as saying, okay, everyone who comes and asks for money and then applies for a program, if I gave you a $2 million check today, would you know what to do with it today, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now? And it's managing money, right? It's money management.
Yeah.
Before you get the check, during the check, and after the check. And I know that's also something, I think, a gap in this space that needs to be.
Yeah. And then for just looking back to actual Bixel Exchange, then what are you most excited about with where they're going, where you guys are going?
Yeah, where we're going. I think, as I mentioned, just this year alone, we've worked with 320 startups.
Yeah.
Which is an insane volume.
That's crazy.
Right? And what I love about my role is that the face of entrepreneurs that I work with and that I'm very passionate about sharing with, we can't become what we have never seen, is the entrepreneurs that I work with are women, are Latinx, are brown founders, are LGBTQ founders, are veteran founders. And the media doesn't see that, right? The larger media and then the conversation. And so I think being able to build programming and be able to share their story, more of the story of what are your different backgrounds, what are your different experiences, where do you come from, why did you start, and that their path is not linear. So the students that are listening, people who are like, I don't know what entrepreneurial is. I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, what if I want to build a company? I've never seen that. You know, I grew up in an area of the United States. We didn't, you know, I was telling you earlier, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was in college. I was at Gonzaga University. I was going through a program. I did mechanical engineering for a couple of years, and then I went into marketing, and then I didn't want to convince people to buy things they didn't need. And then I went into international business and HR, but I remember there was an entrepreneurial program, and I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
And then similarly with what the definition of venture capital, I did not know what a venture capitalist was. I remember hearing the word in Wedding Crashers, didn't know what it was. And now that's my conversation today. That's who I meet with. It's meeting with resources, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm most excited about, being share those stories for people, next generation of entrepreneurs, being able to see more people that look like them building companies.
Yeah. And to that point too, I mean, a lot of people you work with as well, they don't get a lot of funding typically. So even in that front, then looking at the fundraising side of things, like what advice or any insights do you have into like what they should be asking or in that process of fundraising, or what they should be thinking about in terms of raising funds for their company?
I think I would almost turn that question to the VC space, and say, how are you sourcing for startups, and how are you bringing more diverse investors into the space?
Yeah.
Because I think it's like a twofold. You have the startup and then you have the investor,
right? Both sides,
and there's less than 2% of venture capital going to women, and even less than women of color around them. So, God, this is such a tough question and what do you say to, you know, women, underrepresented founders looking for money? It's getting, you know, it's online networking in person. I think you're never going to get what you don't ask for. I think the imposter syndrome is a real thing and a challenge for people, especially where you were raised in a neighborhood where you didn't see people around you doing anything that we do in this room.
Yeah.
And so, you know, understanding, like, don't getting in your own head. Even people I know today who are running incubators and accelerators tell me, or VCs and investors today, they're like, I still struggle with imposter syndrome sometimes, right? And so it's that those issues will come up, right? Those like mental blocks will come up. And so as an entrepreneur or people in startups and building companies, it's not being afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out to people on the LinkedIn, on the Twitters, on the socials, and say, I'm running into this problem. You know, whether it's a harassment issue or whether it's like I don't know what to do because I've talked to 50 people and they've all told me no. What am I missing? Yeah. Asking. Yeah.
And then, I mean, even looking at programs then in the different cities, like looking at Los Angeles with obviously Bixel Exchange, helping people in that way. We've had Grid 110, same type of thing. Like, there are resources out there for helping you grow your company, get fundraising, all of that. It's like, do pursue those as well in your city because there are resources out there.
There's so many resources. And I think the hardest part is people identifying or knowing about those resources. Because, for example, Grid 110, Mickey and I are close friends, and we are excited that we work together at General Assembly, and we're excited that our next roles now we're able to, you know, lift the larger LA tech community and make sure it's inclusive and accessible, and work together on that. But there's so many, not only organizations that are doing this, but individuals in the community that truly care about that. So it's identifying people in that community, whatever city that you're in, whether you're using meetup.com, whether you're using hashtags on Twitter or hashtags on LinkedIn, to find those people who care about startups and who care about whatever problem you're solving, what industry you're working in. It's identifying those people and reaching out and saying, you know, how can I help? Or what resources do you have for me? Or can you point me to other resources? Because there are a lot out there. Yeah. And it's just knowing where to go.
Where to look.
Yeah. And it's, you know, we're busy, you know, I'm a 2-person team. We work with 320 startups a year. I have a team of 40 advisors that are remote. And we're, you know, I tell people we need help with spreading the word, because it's just, and similarly with Grid 110, we're local to Los Angeles, but it's when we're busy doing the work, it's like, how are we sharing the word? But this is one example, but you know, you got to find us. And then also, you know, word of mouth.
Yeah. And then going back to just, there are many different paths to becoming an entrepreneur and like even getting into the space. And you have quite the unique path to Bixel. Can you talk about how you got here exactly?
Yeah.
With the Peace Corps and everything else, like there's so much to it.
Yes.
I'm just curious about that side too.
So I talked about the face of entrepreneurship, right? And my face of entrepreneurs is very much the reason why I work with entrepreneurs today. Is I had a homestay mom when I was in college, my junior year in South Africa, when I studied international environment development for a quick semester. And she was teaching wealth skills, business skills, entrepreneurial skills to women in a village whose husbands abandoned them because they were looking for jobs and livelihood. And so that was my beginning phase of what an entrepreneur was for me. And I said, whatever I'm doing in life, I just want to be working and doing something in that space of whatever her name is Patricia, whatever Patricia's doing. And I was able to see her again 4 years later, which is amazing. But after I had that experience, I told myself after college that I paid my way through college, worked 2 jobs the whole time. Private university costs.
Yeah.
And so after I had that experience, I knew that I wanted to volunteer or be in another culture and language and just learn from the world.
Yeah.
That was my first time going out of country. And I was looking for all these volunteer opportunities, and it required money to go volunteer. So people who are, listening and who want to be international, it costs money sometimes.
Yes, go figure. It costs money too.
And I'm like, I don't have a couple thousand to do that. So I applied for Peace Corps, and Peace Corps just took me on this journey. I applied in December, left in May, and it's crazy turnaround. Some Peace Corps volunteers wait a year, but the invitation was to teach small business development sector. So it was to teach entrepreneurs in high schools. And first of all, I was like crazy. Teaching in high school, that's intimidating, first of all.
Yeah.
Like I used to want to be a teacher, but elementary school, because that's fun playtime.
Yeah.
But high school is another level. So that and is small business advice. And so that took me on a journey. I ended up staying for 4 years. When I came back, another definition of entrepreneurs, right, had changed. So I went from South Africa to Nicaragua. And then coming back, I came back into a world of, I left with a flip phone in 2008. 2011, I came back and everyone was like looking at their phones, talking to their phones.
Much
like,
different.
What world do we live in? And so after, actually I went home to help a friend open up a sports bar for a few months. It was just all these startup things. I noticed the thread in my life is I was always at the bottom helping friends build up things or with trenches with founders. So I decided to move to San Francisco because I knew in San Francisco there was this tech scene, entrepreneurial scene that I didn't understand. And so that was my first foray into tech. And I ended up working for a YC hardware company in our Arduinos and near field communication space. Got fired from that because I'm a really awful office manager, but also it's a 3-person team and they hired me as an office manager. So for those in tech, but that getting fired from that first tech job and company propelled me to work for 8 other startups, just understanding their why, understanding operations, understanding all these things that I didn't know. And that's how I fell into the tech space. And so moving to Los Angeles was literally just better weather, cheaper living. And so General Assembly, and for those that know, scaled really quickly. I was there. I helped start the Santa Monica General Assembly space and was there for 3 years. And that scaled from 9 campuses to 15 really quickly.
Yeah.
But Bixel Exchange, I was a partner of theirs for 2 years at General Assembly and saw what they were doing, loved what they were doing, and knew that they were not vocalizing the impact that they were making to help underserved community college students get into jobs in tech, but also even on the entrepreneurship side. He was doing, Kevin, the previous director, was doing a lot of incredible work, wasn't hearing. So when I was transitioning out of GA, this role came along.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to hear that. One, to show that there are many paths to even get into this, and even to show within that too, like you could be working at startups, you could do other stuff to get experience too, and then it also could contribute to then you starting a company later, building more skills to start that company, building your network to start that company. There's just many different ways to go.
And I would say there are so many jobs out there that you don't even know exist, that I don't even know exist, that are being created with the new economy, with the AI economy, every single day almost, right? And I don't know anyone who grows, I'm the director of an incubator right now.
Yeah.
Who's growing up in this world today that's like, I want to be a director of an incubator, right? Like there's so many jobs like that don't exist. So it's just being open. And I tell younger people when I go in and speak to them, it's just telling them, take all the internships, volunteer, expose yourself to as many things as possible because you just won't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And it's just, you will only know your passions and where it's leading you to if it's an entrepreneurial path or it's solving a problem. But you just won't know until you expose yourself to all of it.
Yeah. And then just kind of wrapping things up, is there anything else you'd kind of suggest or any other advice for entrepreneurs out there to help them grow their businesses or find resources for them? Anything at all really on that?
Yeah. Balance. entrepreneurs, we're working with 320, and yes, remote through our team of advisors, but we also host monthly events, getting them together, supporting each other. So many think that they're going through the challenges that they're going through alone. Yeah. And oftentimes it's not the case. There's 10 other founders that are going through the exact same problem of getting said no to, or I just keep running into this issue and this is not working. I'm building this MVP in my application or whatever it is. Yeah. Taking a step back and finding people in your community and sharing those challenges together, because people in your community will help you get through those blocks. Whether there's mentor of yours or other fellow entrepreneurs and startups, right? But finding the balance piece is directly related to, as I said before, your personal life and your business is a direct reflection of what's going on in your personal life. So taking a step back and finding what balances you, because your company will be better, your team will be better, you will be better if you take better care of yourself. I think the self-care journey isn't talked about enough at all in the startup and entrepreneurial space when we're, doing. Entrepreneurs are always doing a million things. So, yes. Yeah.
I mean, well, just to go deeper on that self-care part then, it's just no one talks about it. I mean, what are some things they can do? Because obviously there's a difficulty, right? Trying to find that balance. I mean, what would you tell them on that? Because they're trying to do everything they can to grow this company or fundraise or whatever. Like, how can they think through building that into their day-to-day life?
Sure. It was World Mental Health Awareness Day recently.
Yeah. Recently, yep.
And on Twitter, there was the 5 things I do to stay balanced in life, right? From many influencers and whatever, celebrities and just people on Twitter sharing. And so I think it's the 5 things that just bring you joy, that help you check out, right? Some little things that I do, before I do anything, look at my phone, I meditate for 3 minutes in my little corner. Nice. I love dancing. Dancing is something that I know will help me stay in the present moment, right? They're things, they don't need to be 10 minutes to an hour, but those things literally will add clarity to your life and help bring your company to a better place. Whether that's, sitting under a tree for 5 minutes. One of mine was hugging a tree. It takes 5 seconds to hug a tree. Right? You just hug a tree for 5 seconds. The other one was pretending to be a starfish. Yeah. Someone asked me, was like, how do you pretend to be a starfish, Kat? And I'm like, it's real simple. You know what a starfish looks like?
Yep, there it is. There it is.
And all you got to do is go like this for 5 seconds. And there's those moments, right? That will just, you got to do those things. Yeah. Yeah. When you're just doing, you got to do those things and take time for yourself. And I know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are moms, dads, kids. And so I know that balance is hard for everyone, regardless of where you're at, but also as an entrepreneur, because you're balancing your business and you're balancing everything else. So I think the self-care journey is knowing that it doesn't need to be an hour-long commitment in a dark room by yourself, right? Yeah. It can be a lot of things with other people and take a few moments.
A quicker thing too, potentially. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Kat, where can people go to connect with you and also learn more about Bixel Exchange?
Sure, bixelexchange.com.
Perfect.
I tell people, admittedly, I'm awful on emails. So find us on LinkedIn, on the Twitters, we're on the social medias, we're on Instagram, Bixel Exchange, we're on Snapchat, we work with Snap a lot. On the social medias, but don't hesitate to reach out, ask questions, be curious.
Awesome. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out Startup 2.0 from Spark XYZ. If you want to learn more about startups and investing, you can check us out and join the ecosystem at sparkxyz.io.